I'm sitting here with Glenn Beck. That's a name I don't need to introduce. People have been listening to Glenn Beck for years and years, and we're here inside the West Side Elementary School where he and his team are setting up a museum exhibit that has artifacts from history and Hollywood. And
we start from the Pilgrims and go all the way through. Politically, we go all the way. We stop at Sputnik in the space program, and then we go, this I call the candy lane. We go into the culture that America has spread over the whole world.
Yeah, okay. So this is in a remote corner of eastern Idaho. We're in Dayton, which is near Preston.
Yes.
It's a little remote community that many people probably are not familiar with. But let's start, like you mentioned, we got artifacts all around us. Do you want to talk about this one that's right here?
This is from the Batman Begins. This is Christian Bale. This is the fireproof cowl that he wore when Scarecrow started the fire and Batman walked through it. So this is all fireproof. This is the Cup of the Carpenter, and surely my son's not dumb enough to bring my diary to Germany. This is his diary.
From Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones.
Wow.
The head of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, that's Braveheart's sword. This is Christopher Reeve's outfit from Superman. This is the first drawing of Disneyland, hand-colored by Walt Disney. Original, all kinds of Disney stuff here. This is Wizard of Oz. The Dorothy dress is a fake. But everything else here, one of the 7 pairs of ruby slippers. This is Charlie Chaplin's. The cane was given to Danny Kaye in 1956 by Charlie Chaplin. Like I said, Sputnik. We have Archie Bunker and Edith's chair from All in the Family. We have C-3PO, R2-D2, Darth Vader, all the way to FDR's wheelchair, George Washington's glasses, a 1800s, 1823 copy of the Declaration of Independence. If you've ever seen it in person, it's very faded, and that's because this copy was made by putting solvent on the original and lifting up the ink. So it's a little bit for everybody.
Yeah, wow, so much.
Yeah.
We'll be sure and give you kind of a look at some of the things that are here a little later on, but do you want to talk about, these are items you have collected over the years?
So in 2008, in my prayers, I heard clay pots, and I didn't know what that meant for about 6 months, and I kept hearing it over and over again. And in a monologue, I was talking about our American history and our sacred American scriptures, Declaration of Independence, Constitution. And when I said sacred American scriptures, I remembered the clay pots were the safekeeping of the Dead Sea Scrolls, thought to be lost, but it was a community that just gathered all of the Dead Sea Scrolls as others were coming to destroy anything that was now out of the canon, and they hid it in a cave. So I worry that sometimes I'm going to get up to the pearly gates and the Lord is going, yeah, that clay pots thing, that's not what I meant. But my first thing was to get as much of America. We're the second largest library now of founding documents outside of the Library of Congress and the National Archives. And then it just spread to preserve as much of our story as possible. And the other way I've interpreted clay pots is our children are clay pots. Plant the story deep in them. So we were down in St. George. It's the first time we've ever taken any of it on the road. What you see here kind of looks like the end of Indiana Jones a little bit, but this is about 1% of the museum.
Yeah, wow. So obviously you could talk all day about the items in here. Is there one, do you have a favorite item?
It's always the most recent. George Washington's compass is amazing because it has a rub print from him holding it and thinking with it his whole life. We have the collar, the cuff of Abraham Lincoln, the playbill from the night, the key that opened box number 7, the presidential box at Ford's Theater. I mean, we have so much from Abraham Lincoln. That's really, really special. I just completed our section on eugenics for the Nazi side. I'm now working on the American eugenics side because we really kind of taught a lot of that stuff to them. We were deeply involved in that. And it's starting to happen again in Canada. Here too, but Canada's way ahead in a bad way. And so we have documents from Germany that will blow your mind. All of the eugenics things, from all the experimental surgeries, everything. We have a hand-signed by Adolf Hitler award for being such good citizens to the Reich for I.G. Farber, and their gift that they gave to the German people was Zyklon B gas. So that's the most recent acquisitions. I've been focusing on that.
Yeah, it's so. For me, this is really cool. I'm a longtime listener.
Oh, thank you.
And I know that Glenn Beck's at his best when he's telling a story about history. That's you.
They won't let me tell them in here because the tour is supposed to take about an hour and a half, and I take about 4 hours. So
yeah, but so kind of going on this history theme here, you've started to talk about some of these issues. Is there a period in history or a person in history that you are most fascinated with, that maybe doesn't get as much coverage as you would like it to, or isn't taught in schools?
I think Churchill is underrated, and a lot of what the bad side of Churchill is not known. And that doesn't diminish him. For a while, I was a big Churchill fan, read everything I could on Churchill. And then I thought, okay, where else did he affect the world? India. And then I started reading biographies of Churchill from the Indian perspective. Not good. And it's true. And I wrestled with that on, wow, is he a good guy or a bad guy? And it's the same question we've been asking about the country. Are we a good country or a bad country? And the answer to all of those is yes, we're both. We've done horrible things, and we've done amazing, miraculous things. What's our trajectory? At the end of Churchill's life, his trajectory was up. The beginning of Abraham Lincoln, not a good tale. I mean, when he was teens and early 20s, not a good guy. But he learned from that period, and he became, almost America's patron saint in the end.
Churchill, yeah, and I've heard you talk about that.
I love him.
On the radio program.
Yeah. And Washington.
I've always been fascinated personally. There's this time period in U.S. history between the end of the Civil War and Theodore Roosevelt. And you're a historian. Mm-hmm. That seems to be a period of time where we don't cover very much in schools. You do.
Yeah.
Why is that period of time seem to be like we just dice over it? We skip over it and move ahead. Why? There's so much that happened in that time period.
Because I think what happened there was more, I think, of an intellectual wrestling. You had the freed slaves, and then you had all the slaveholders, all the people that were for the South, not willing to give in. You start the Klan really starts up as an enforcement tool. All of that is happening, and then the Republicans start to lose power, and they start to make deals and we pull our troops out of the South, and then we get into Jim Crow. None of that is fun to look at. But the most important thing that was happening at the same time was Karl Marx, 1849, and then you have Origin of the Species, same period of time. So as we're wrestling with slavery, science is taking us to a new place. Marx is taking us to a new place. And Marx and science kind of work together. It's a scientific method. Mussolini, it's science. We're just making things very efficient in a scientific way. Same thing with the Nazis. Origin of the Species starts to give us, it codifies racism. There are subspecies now. Darwin said, aren't you following the science? Follow the science.
Yeah.
These people are half-baked. They're not as good. They're subhumans. This brings us, that whole period is the end of one kind of hatred and the beginning of a much more virulent hatred that takes about 40 years to really show its ugly side.
Wow, fascinating.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of historical artifacts that you can come and see. They'll be here over the next few days. We'll have details about, times and ticket information. We'll put that in an article below this video at eastidahonews.com. Let me shift gears for a little bit. You have a part-time residence in eastern Idaho.
Yes.
How long have you lived here?
10, 11 years, something like that. When I was living in New York, we were looking for a place that we could just be normal and just, wear my $8 shirt and live like normal people and raise our kids in the summers at least. So we bought out here. It's very reminiscent of my childhood. It is kind of in the middle of nowhere, but that's what we really like. And this community has been so gracious to my family and so good. And so we want to help them build a library and an addition to the school that's being built. We want to help finish raising the funds for those things. And they don't know it yet, but one of my most treasured pieces that is here, we're going to put on loan at the local library, and it's a Rembrandt Peale, George Washington. It's the porthole George Washington that you've seen a million times in every history book. And if they will find an appropriate home in the library, we'd like to loan it to them and keep it there so the kids can actually come in and see that painting and see George Washington.
Wow, that's great. So how did you find this location? Like we mentioned in the beginning, it's kind of a remote.
So I'm friends with Chris Stewart, the congressman, and his whole family grew up here. And when I was looking for a piece of land, they said, Chris said, there's a place that I know. It's really great, way off the map. And you'd love it. And so we came, we bought a ranch, we bought a farm, started a farm down here, and now the Stewart family is helping us with cattle. Actually, I say I'm a rancher, but it's kind of like in Texas, all hat, no cattle. I'm kind of like cattle, nothing in the hat.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
So, yeah, we love it here.
Yeah, that's great.
It.
It is. It's a beautiful drive out here. So something I've been thinking about, and we were talking a little bit about this before we started recording. A couple of years ago, you invited your audience to donate so that you could charter a plane to rescue people in Afghanistan, people that were left behind after the sudden withdrawal of the troops. And your audience raised, I think it was $1 million in one day to help with that effort. Is that right?
In 3 days, I think it was 15 million. In total, it was 45 million.
That's right. Okay.
It was crazy.
It was a crazy amount of money.
Crazy amount.
And I don't think that's ever been done before.
Not that I know of. Not by a radio audience.
But there was so much that was happening behind the scenes, and I know you told your audience, if you only, you told them there's much more going on here than you realize, but you couldn't talk about it because of the security and it was very high security thing. Is there any more you can say about that?
So there are still people. We're still there. We're the last ones there. We're still there. We didn't charter one plane. We took over an entire airline. And at one time we were watching like ABC News, and they were showing the planes trapped on the tarmac. And the State Department is getting people out, but they're trapped on the tarmac now. And we saw the satellite photo. We're like, those are all our planes. Those aren't any State Department planes. They're not taking planes. They're not doing that. They were so bad. At one point, they were playing paperwork games and laughed at us when we said, we had all the paperwork they told us that we needed the day before for everybody. And then when we got all of everything done and we presented it to them, they said, oh, there's a new form, it's, whatever. And we said, we'd never heard of that. Yeah, it's new. Where do we get it? You can get it at the U.S. Embassy in Kabul. And we said, you just closed the embassy. Yeah, I guess you're going to have to figure that out. Click. That day, I went on the air and I said, I don't think I told the story, but I said, if this is who we are, I will renounce my citizenship. They were really, really evil in many ways. But we still have people that are there. We still have people that need help, and we are helping them with everything that we can. But we have used actually things from history. This has happened before in history, things like this, where people couldn't get out. And luckily I know history really well. And at one point I said to my team, because we were just all dying inside because we couldn't move anybody. And we tried everything. And I said, I'm sitting there and I said, does anybody know the story of so-and-so? And nobody did. And I said, let me tell you. And I told the story. And we probably got 2,000 people out just because we knew history. And when I'm dead, we'll tell that story. But it's remarkable. This audience is so great. The Sound of Freedom movie is out, telling the story of Operation Underground Railroad at the very beginning. That operation that you see in the movie, my audience paid for. They're the ones that raised the funds to do not to do the movie, to rescue and to put Operation Underground Railroad into business.
Yeah.
It's just a great group of people.
And you're still involved with Operation Underground Railroad?
Yeah.
You're on the board, or?
Yeah. No, I'm not on the board. I'm on the board of the Nazarene Fund, we get persecuted Christians out. We help OUR. We just kind of work together, and when we can help, we have a plane, they have a plane, they have operatives, we need whatever it is, we try to help each other out.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about politics.
Ooh.
It's an election year coming up. We know that you're not a fan of Joe Biden.
Oh yeah.
And
is anybody really, though? I mean, really? I contend that his wife probably doesn't even like him all that much, just because of the way that family is allowing him to. It's sad what's happening. It's very sad. And if my family did that to me, well, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. Dad, it's time.
Yeah. And you've talked extensively about the Hunter Biden case on your show, and no one's paying attention to it.
No, well, it's not only that. I have compassion to some degree for Hunter, because I think nobody's as dumb as you would have to be to leave breadcrumbs. I mean, photographs, videos, cocaine, everything, and leave all of the trail with you with the white hands in the powder going, what? I didn't do anything. You're not that stupid. I think that's a cry for help. I really do. I think he is deeply involved in some things, and he resents it, and in some way he's crying for help. It's a sad family. It's really sad.
On the other side, Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And the constant negative attacks. I'm trying to figure out how to word my question here. No one can say, who's going to win the presidential election, but is Donald Trump in trouble? Is he...
I'd never count Donald Trump out. I'd never call him out. I was not a fan of Donald Trump the first time around.
Right.
And then I watched what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And I agreed with his policies. Didn't like the style, but liked his policies. He also, and I've told him this to his face, I said, Mr. President, you're a human hand grenade. You know that? You're a human hand grenade. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, you'll just say something and you'll throw it out and it'll roll into a room and explode. And then we'll all stand around going, oh, that's not. And when the dust clears, we'll say, well, what's behind the wall? He exposed things that most people didn't know. I mean, I thought when he was talking about the deep state, I know about Soros and all of that stuff. Oh, no, there's secret combinations that are biblical in its size and scope. So I don't know. I know I'm going to stop wargaming because I would have never seen Donald Trump doing things that I think the Lord was probably happy with, and being used as a tool. But then I'm a recovering alcoholic. He'll use everybody. So I'm staying out of the, I think what would be really good, because I don't know what's good. We keep screwing it up.
Oh, right. But Republican, Democrat, I mean, whoever comes in power, like, how do you...
You don't unless you... I feel like, because I've had several of the candidates. I've had dinner with several of the candidates, and we've talked about things. And they've said, Glenn, what do you think, what approach would you take? I said, I'm for the IT approach. IT approach? Yeah. Have you tried unplugging it and plugging it back in? Restore it to factory settings. This is all glitch. Everything you're seeing is we've gone way off. We need to defrag and reset to factory settings. It can be done, but it's not going to be easy, and the work we have in front of us is not going to be pretty. The question is, do we become the Americans? Over in that box right there is the Normandy flag. That shows you what D-Day was really like. It was lost, the ship was sunk, it hit every beach on D-Day. And it kept going back and forth and shuttling soldiers back. At the end, it was sunk. Guy went down to save the flag. And it's been in private hands since then until we bought it and showed it. Are we those people? I know we can be. Or have we gotten to a place to where we have such little gratitude, such a loss of perspective, that we just let it go by and we do nothing, and we want our stuff, we want our house, we want our money, we want whatever. I want, in the end, and I think every American will eventually say this, just depends on how far down the road we are, I want my freedom. I'll lose all of this. I mean, None of this stuff. I take my whole salary and, pay for my lifestyle. My kids, I've told them, and it's actually in my will this way. To my son, I leave my best regards. Okay? All of this is not to enrich me or my family. It is to preserve it. And if it has to go into a giant cave, 99% of it is in the side of a mountain, and be lost and never be seen, so be it. We have got to preserve our nation. In the collection, there's a letter from Thomas Jefferson, and he said, "I see shrill breakers ahead and a storm coming. I hope that prudence and a love for reformation and freedom the world over will save us. We are the last great hope, and the freedom of the world will be on our heads should we lose." And he was right then, he's right now. It's the technology and the direction we're going in is massive slavery. And without a Tower of Babel moment where God comes in and scrambles the ones and zeros of today's language, our kids do not see freedom. We cannot lose our Bill of Rights. We can't.
Glenn, it's been a pleasure. It's
Thank you.
You've been a hero of mine for
Oh
many,
my
many
gosh.
years. I appreciate this one-on-one. This is a dream come true.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Just real quick, you mentioned your son. How is your family doing?
Thank you for asking. It has been a rough couple of years, and our family is no different than everybody else's. And we've had, in our family, we've had 2 suicide attempts in the last year. And they are both doing much better now, but I would not want to be a kid today. I don't know how they survive. I will tell you this. I know what our job is. My age and everybody who is not coming up, and not everybody over 30. Our job is to not tell what this next generation has to do. We need to teach them truths, universal truths, and then support them in every way we can. But I always feel like we're cleaning up after my generation, cleaning up after the hippies. I'm in the latchkey generation. Guys, you've had your fun. You've spent it. You're 9,000 years old in Washington, and you've put us in this situation. Give it up. Not to my generation. Give it up. Give it to the younger generation, because it is their future. My future, short. They've got a long time to live. Let's pass it on to them, support them, and teach them the principles of the gospel, and then let them rule themselves.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.